Hey guys, this is Comic Uno, and today I'm doing Comic Uno's Best Comics of the Week. So I am back, and we have a very small haul. Only 6 books this week. Next week I'm going back to my normal pull list, thankfully. I know all of us, we've been missing our comics, and I think for this video I'm going to try out a new thing that I did last week because I only had digital comics, and try putting some of the images from the comics and the covers throughout the review. So let me know in the comments below if you like that or not. And we'll see if I could keep that up with the normal amount of comics to read as well. Because usually I do read all the comics in one day to get up the review for Wednesday. Which, another note, sorry this is on Thursday, but Wednesday fell on January 1st and I wasn't posting a video on New Year's Day. So Thursday you got a review though. So let's get started. Number 6 for me is Batgirl issue 42. So Batgirl, I haven't been loving. I just feel like the book doesn't quite have much of a direction, and I do feel like this book has potential, though. I enjoyed that Barbara feels like she has to do something different than she would, because Oracle's kind of her past, obviously, and she sees that as her past, and we actually get to see her other suits, like the Burnside suit, the New 52 suit, so I like that, and she does things again she normally wouldn't, and then that kind of leads to her kissing Detective Bard. I kind of wish there was a little bit more development to that. Again, I understand the theme was like, just do it, you know, just do something that you wouldn't overthink, which I definitely like that, but I don't know how to feel about that relationship just yet. It kind of feels a little forced to me, but we'll see where it ends up going. Also, a big downside for me, which is why this is the lowest this week, is the artwork. Honestly, I'm not a huge fan. And now I'm actually, because of because of me editing photos in, usually I'll just show the picture, but now I can actually show the pages through editing, so I might just do that. But anyways, yeah, the artwork, wasn't a huge fan of it. It feels rough to me, and like this is a good example of that. Just not really a big fan of it. So Batgirl issue 42 gets 2.5 stars. It's an okay issue. Hopefully it finds a direction as it goes along. Moving on to number 5, which actually I got this signed because the writer was at my comic book store on Wednesday, so I couldn't go to the signing, but I was able to get the issue signed, and here it is, Hawkeye Freefall, and there's the signed issue. So with this issue, it's a mini-series, Hawkeye Returns, and the beginning starts out with the Hood. I don't know much about the character, and I was honestly not very interested in the character. Just kind of felt like a generic Hawkeye villain to me, but I really enjoyed the book as we got towards the middle of it, where we met his new girlfriend. I enjoyed their rapport. I liked the rapport between Hawkeye and Falcon and Winter Soldier, which I know has a series coming up, so I'm sure that's why they appeared, and obviously the Disney Plus series as well, but I enjoyed that aspect. I felt like it was a bit more fun and very Hawkeye in many ways, so that caught me more to probably pick up the next issue, because finally we get to see Ronin, and the mystery is who's Ronin if Hawkeye was Ronin. So I thought that was cool and better than the Hood stuff. I'm sure it's all connected, and we'll see how that plays through, but that's the aspect I enjoyed the most. And the artwork, I'm not usually a fan of Otto Schmidt's artwork. I think he's done some stuff for DC and like Batman, and honestly I thought it fit really well here though. I enjoyed kind of the laid back nature of it all, and there's some really good action overall. I also enjoyed Ronin's look a lot too, so I like this issue. I don't know if I'm going to pick up the whole miniseries. Issue 2 is really going to tell for that, but it definitely gave me enough for issue 2 to kind of figure out where this mystery is going. So that was Hawkeye Freefall issue 1, and I gave that 3 stars, and that was number 5. Moving on to number 4. I'm sad to see this book so low all the time. Not so low. It's usually just like in the middle. I want it to be like my number 1 pick, and that's Marauders issue 5. So with this issue, the thing I enjoyed the most was definitely Kitty and Emma, and it's just a small scene here. I mean, it takes up a couple of pages, but we get to see Kitty open up to Emma, where Kitty's like, hey, I'm scared, I can't get to Krakoa and I'm just gonna be the only old lady X-Men and that sucks. And I like that because I feel like up to this point I didn't really understand why Kitty was a pirate or like how she made this turn. But that moment you kind of see her fears and her vulnerabilities, and I hope that's something that's explored more. And also there was this one glimmer where Kitty, I love this ending, where Kitty tells Emma, I always wondered if I went with you. And I wrote this in a review, but I said that I feel like this is Kitty's teenage rebellion phase, right? She never had one. She was the youngest X-Men. She never had the opportunity to have one. So this is like her what if scenario. Say, I'm going to do all the shit I wasn't allowed to do when I was a kid. So it kind of makes more sense of like why she's being so outlandish and doing this stuff and kind of working for the villain. And I just really like Emma and Kitty's dynamic overall and excited to see where that one's going to go. And that's definitely the heart of the series for me thus far. The reason this is a little lower, though, is I feel like the other characters didn't have much to do, but they're still put in this issue to try to have some side story. And this doesn't quite seem like a team book. Everyone's kind of doing their own thing, and I don't really feel like they're all working together, which I feel is a shame. So, Marauders issue 5, it's has some glimmers of hope here. I think Kitty and Emma is the best. There's some good action sequences with Kitty phasing a boat, which is pretty awesome. Let me show you guys that on the screen through editing, so you can check that out. And also, I will say for the artwork, though, there are some times where I feel like it was a little blurry, the artwork. It could have been a little bit more detailed. But yeah, overall, given Marauders issue 5, 3 stars. Moving on to what are we up to? I think we're up to number 4. Let's see. We're up to number 3. So number 3 for me is Thor issue 1. So I say this in a lot of reviews because I review Jane Foster a lot and I love Jane. But I always say this. I'm not a big Thor fan. Like, I really didn't get into the franchise until Jane, and I liked her because it was grounded. It wasn't too supernatural. It wasn't too mystic. It wasn't too mythology driven. It was a human diving into these stories. And with Thor, that's always been the hard part for me. It's so mythology driven and very heavy. So this, on the other hand, isn't so heavy on the mythology, but on the cosmic stuff. The other side of Marvel, I never could get into. So if you're a Donny Cates fan, you've been following his stuff, well, I feel like you'll really enjoy this because it really continues a lot of the stuff he's been doing with Guardians, with Silver Surfer, with all the way back to his Thanos run. And the ending, we get to see Thor as the Herald of Thunder. So I think it also was implied that he is going to kill Galactus and they're going to work together. So for me, it didn't latch me to want to read more just because I haven't been reading any of the cosmic stuff. I just haven't been invested in it, even though I know it's super good and I know people have been really enjoying it. It's just not my flavor. So I don't know if I'm going to pick up the next issue. I don't think this was a bad issue. I think it was a really well-written issue, but it just wasn't for me. So even the Norse god stuff, I like the idea of it. I like that he's a king and it's not just a superhero book. It feels like so much bigger than that. The artwork's also really dark and really good too, and I really like Thor's new look overall, so I don't know if I'm going to read the next issue, but I do think this is good, and if you've already been enjoying the cosmic stuff, this is just a whole nother level, and I think if you've been really enjoying Jason Aaron's run, there's a lot of stuff to enjoy here too. So Thor issue 1 gets 3 stars, and that is number 3. Moving on to number 2, these are really the books I really enjoyed this week, and that was X-Men issue 4. So I really enjoyed this as a whole. I think it's a little bit of a slow burn, but once you get to the end, you're like, that's what it was all about. So with this issue, we get to see the X-Men go to this kind of UN, almost Illuminati meeting. Obviously two different things, but I would say probably more towards the Illuminati than the UN. But yeah, it just felt like, all right, there's this secret group that people don't know about. And they have this meeting, they have really good dinner, and at the same time we see that these leaders do not trust the X-Men and do not trust mutants, even though they're trying to give like a helping hand and really showing their hand. They don't care. You know, obviously this has always been a big theme for the X-Men, and I absolutely love the ending where Professor X, because obviously you're a little worried that Professor X has been not very Professor X, like he kind of gave up on the dream, and he was like, no, you know, someone once told me, which was, if you read House of X, Moira told Professor X that you should give up on the dream. You're dreaming the wrong dream. And he obviously somewhat agrees with this because he's doing everything with Krakoa, but he still says, I still love you. You know, I still love you guys. I still think that humans and mutants can coexist. And I really enjoyed that part. And overall, their new message of not fighting through fists and action, which obviously is just the complete opposite of what you think of a superhero comic, and actually fighting more with words and I think they called it like secret weapons or I forget what they call it, but money and power in that regard. So I thought that was really cool and showcases the new level where Hickman's taking X-Men and why people have been enjoying this fresh new take and it feeling different but also very similar. So I also really like the art. You know, there's a lot of talking heads but still very interesting, especially the intercuts between the action and this dinner sequence. So overall I really enjoyed this issue. I've been really enjoying Hickman's X-Men in general, so I'm going to give that 4 stars, and that is number 2. Moving on to number 1, which is Dial H for Hero, issue 10. I am sad that there's only 2 more issues left. I hope that we're gonna get a little bit more after this or something with these characters. But this issue was really good. At first when I read it, I thought it was just gonna kind of be a one-off where it's just like, okay, they're exploring the multiverse and that all in itself is really cool. And it's just like that one step more than what they were doing. And you thought they were already doing a lot. And I was like, all right, we're not just going to explore heroes of this dimension. We're going to explore all these heroes, which was really cool. Also another review, a written review I did. I called Dial H the good place of comics, and I really stand by that. I feel like this comic really knows how to balance emotion with comedy and utilizing that comedy to tell a really emotional, resonated story like The Good Place. You know, obviously The Good Place kind of dealing with ethics more, but I would say Dial H dealing with morality in a different way as well. So, which kind of brings me into why this is my pick of the week and why I put this so high is the ending, where, you know, a big theme of the story is how Dial H kind of gives the glimmer of power to these humans and they want more. They're addicted to it. And is Miguel getting addicted to it as well? As he's a teenager. He's trying to figure out himself. He's also trying to figure out what type of hero am I? Like, what does this all mean? And I love Summer is kind of the voice of reason. Not kind of, is the voice of reason. Where she's like, don't do this. This is exactly what the operator said not to do. And, well, he does it. And now he is working with the villain. And there's all these different versions of Miguel, which, look at that artwork, man. First, I mean, obviously, paying homage to Superman, which is really cool, because this whole book kind of pays homage to Superman. And yeah, just the different styles that we get to see, the different multiverses. Another part I really liked was seeing Summer's alter ego throughout this book as well, and Summer being able to interact with her. I just love this duo. I love this book, and I feel like not enough people are reading it, so go check it out. It was one of my favorites from last year. It continues to be one of my favorites, and I hope we get to see even more in 2020. A really well done issue. Given that 4.5 stars. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic Uno. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of all the issues this week. Go follow me on Twitter and Facebook. Go check out my comics like Father Like Daughter and They Call Her the Dancer. And every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time is Comic Book Weekly, where we discuss our favorite comics and comic book news. We did take off for for Christmas and New Year's, and we'll be back this Tuesday like every week. So we're really excited for that. Definitely check out our show. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Bye.